Alright, so we're going to start off with this middle section here, and I'll just press Alt-Q to isolate the selection. We're going to turn our snaps off and just select half of this, delete it, the other half. We're even going to select a quarter of that and just delete all that. So we're just left with this little piece. And this is a quick way to get the right pivots and to get a good modular piece that we can use to copy around to recreate the middle section. So we're going to be using these new graphite modeling tools, and there's only a few of these tools that I've gotten used to, but they're very valuable. So I'm going to start off with this Swift Loop tool, which is just going to add some edge loops. If you hold down Shift and click, it pretty much creates a loop that follows contour of the shape. So I'm going to select those interfaces and delete them, so that could be the doorway entry. And I'll add another loop over here, and I'm going to select these to make the entry a little bit higher, and I'm going to drag these two up because there's going to be an entry and then there's going to be another inset section there. And basically we're going to try and set this up. So I'm going to add a symmetry modifier so we can see this completely. We'll go ahead and add another symmetry modifier and one more so we can get this going all the way around. And the nice part about this is we only have to edit a small section and it will automatically populate the rest of it. And I'm going to add a turbo smooth here with a couple iterations. That way we can see what it looks like when we toggle the end result. So we'll go back down to the edit poly and we're going to go into the edge mode. We're going to add a few more loops here. Now we're going to go to the top view. We're going to move these loops around, but we're going to make sure to try to keep the contour cylinder shape. And that's looking pretty good. So we'll go in here and we're going to select these. First I'm going to move this up to make it look more like a arc. And I'm going to add a connect here. I basically need to add another loop. I need it to follow this arc and come down so we can extrude that in and get a nice edge flow. And we're going to manually create a cut here to connect to those edges we made. And you need to watch out that you don't break the contour here, but that looks pretty good. And we're going to do the same thing over here, but we're just going to hold down Shift and drag in some more edges. Now we're just going to select these top ones and drag them down. And it's kind of the same way of doing that, but we didn't have those deleted there on the side, so there's two different ways to do the same exact thing. So we're just going to select all these verts here and drag them in to make sure they line up. And we're also going to bring these in to the same depth as the rest of the verts. And this is just going to help whenever we have our turbo smooth to keep those hard edges before it goes around that curve. So now I'm going to hold down Shift and drag out another couple copies, and we're going to give it a nice deep entrance. We're keeping edge loops around where we want hard edges. And that looks pretty good. And we're going to select these polygons and we're going to extrude them in. If you hold down Shift and click that tool, it's going to bring up the options. We're going to zoom in here and we're going to bring it in just a little at first so we can get a loop there at the beginning, and then we'll bring it in pretty deep, and then we'll add another one to keep that hard edge. Now we're going to have to select these inner polys that it created and delete them. That way it doesn't mess up our symmetry. Just select these in here and delete them, and that looks pretty good. So we'll show an end result to see what it looks like. We definitely need some work with the arcs, but looks like that we have the nice hard edges. It looks pretty good. So we'll go back in here, we're going to select these top verts and bring them down. We'll bring these up and try to make it look like a better arc instead of a point. So we can see here that it's looking a lot better. We have a little bit of problems there in the center where the symmetry connects. Looks like some of the verts aren't welding correctly. So we'll just move this in. To fix this, it can be a challenge sometime. So we're going to select all those verts here, and we're just going to move them down. And you can see here how the flow is just not correct. Something's not welding right. So we're just going to select them all, and then we're going to show end result. We're going to switch our view so we can see the top view and also the perspective at the same time. And we're just going to move these until it kind of corrects itself. And that looks like it fixed most of it, but there is a little section there that you can see it didn't get. And it also bulges out a little bit, so there's a little bit more work that needs to be done here. So we're going to go back in edge mode, and then we're going to go into the front view, and we're just going to drag out another one of these to get this main entrance going. We'll drag this down, and we're just going to try to give this entrance nice little details like you see in the reference image. And we're just going to drag these in like that. And we'll go into edge mode, and we're going to drag them back a little. I'm going to turn off the grids here, and we're going to go into the top view, and we'll go into the front view over here, and then we're just going to hold down shift, and we're going to move these into place, and that looks pretty good. And we'll just hold down shift and drag out some more of these edges to give it a little bit more detail and interesting shapes. And we'll just drag out one more so we can get a nice hard edge there. Now we'll select this one and we'll hit loop. This edge is not going to be very hard, so we're going to extrude those edges and just extrude the base width. And now when we go to our turbo smooth, you can see it gives it a nice hard edge. But you can see there is some problems right there in the symmetry, and we're going to have to fix that. But first we're going to go here, we're going to select ring, and then we're going to, better yet, just use the Swift loop tool. And we're just going to add a loop right there to make that edge a little bit harder. While we're here, we're just going to add a few more details. So we're going to add one in the middle and then sets of two on the side so we can extrude out and have nice hard edges on these details. So I'm going to select those two inner ones. I'm going to hit ring. I'm going to hold down control and go into polygon mode. You have to use the icons to do that. You can see it has all that selected. Now we're going to go back to the extrude and hold down shift so we can extrude these things out. And we're going to make sure to go by local normal. And we're going to go out a little bit at first. Hit apply. And go out a lot more. Hit apply. That's pretty much it. And now if we go into turbo smooth, you can see it just gives a little bit of detail there, which looks nice. But at the bottom there's no edge loops near there, so it's trying to smooth across those surfaces. So we're just going to delete those. Same thing up here, we're just going to delete these. And that should fix that problem. And now we need to go to all these edges here, and we're just going to use the scale, non-uniform scale tool, and just make them completely straight. And drag them back to the center of the grid. And that looks pretty good. That seemed to solve all those problems we were having at the symmetry. And we also need to fix the problem over here at the one way we could fix that is if we just go into our rotate and rotate this 45 degrees. You can see how those verts just aren't lined up along the grid. So if we just do the same thing over here by using the non-uniform scale and then move them to the grid, you can see how this a lot of times fixes the problem. So now if we show end result and go to the polygon mode, you can see that pretty much fixed it. There is a little bulge there, and we just need to check that out in the top viewport. We just need to make sure all those things line up. So we're going to select these verts and we're just going to line them up to make sure they're out at the same distance. And that should fix the bulge. And there's still a little bulge there. And we just need to make sure that it follows the contour correctly. So we'll bring this back. And sometimes you just have to eyeball it to make sure that it follows that contour. And now also this arch looks a little looks a little oval. We want more of a hard controlled arch. So I'm going to select these verts and drag them over to try to make it a little bit wider. And we'll select these edges to kind of stay with those verts. But you have to watch out because when you move these around, it's going to break the contour again. So you just have to remember to go back and fix those. So we'll select these rings and we're going to get a swift loop. And we're going to add another loop here to try to make that edge a little bit harder. And that did a lot better job. Now it looks like we have the opposite problem to where the arc is a little too square. So now we're going to start making the top part a little higher. And we'll just make these a little higher to make it look a little bit better. So select all these and then we'll just move them back. Alright, it looks pretty good. And we'll just show end result. We can see it still looks really square. There's those bulges over there by the inset. There is still some work that needs to be done here. So we just bring these in a little like that. We'll select all these, bring them in to give it a little bit of an angle. I think that's going to work. Alright, I think that intersection of that entrance looks pretty good. But we're going to select this loop and we'll just start with this entrance first, and we'll show end result and we'll just drag it down until that edge looks a little cleaner, doesn't look too square. And we'll go ahead and select this inset and try to fix those bulges that were coming out that broke the contour. So we'll just select these and manually try to fix this. We'll just select each one of these verts, drag them out. Make sure to get this one right here and just move it right there. I think that'll help a lot. Alright. Also, we're going to bring this over and in to try to fix that smooth contour. Alright, now we're going to go back into our edge mode, and I think sometimes Control S will do soft selection instead of save, so I think that's what happened right there. I'm just going to move this up, and while we're up here, we're going to kind of deal with this top section because it's a little too tall. And we're going to select these top polygons and extrude them out. Try to give some details up here. And we'll just put this out pretty far to get a good silhouette. We'll just select these top ones and delete them, and also where the symmetry is. And we'll delete this one as well. And we'll select these edges at the top, and then we'll hold down Shift and drag out another loop. And we'll drag another one out, and we'll extend it out some. Scale it a little bit so we can get some interesting details here that connect to that bowl. So every time you expand something out, you're going to have to scale it to match the cylinder shape. And we'll drag another one up and drag another one out to kind of get a little stair-step detail effect. And we'll drag another one back in and we'll scale it down a little bit. And we'll drag this one back up. And I think that's going to work. So we'll drag this middle one back up to get a nice curve. We're going to chamfer those edges, get a good curve going on, and that looks pretty good. And we're just going to add a few loops in here to keep those hard edges. So we'll add those there, we'll add a couple here, and we'll go here to this bottom section. We'll add a few loops in here. And we'll go ahead and add a couple more so we can extrude out some more details. And now you could see it looks pretty good, but there's problems with the symmetry areas once again. So we're just going to select all of those, scale them to make sure they're straight, and then line them up to the grid. You can see over here it's way off, so we'll just scale those and then move them to the grid. That should fix the problem. Yep. Now we're going to go back and select this entire top section, and we're going to bring it down because it's a little bit too tall, I think. So we're just going to start selecting some of these and bring each section down. And we'll have to check our proportions a little later just to see how much above that bowl we really are. And now we'll select this new middle section, and we're going to non-uniform scale it up to make it a little bit bigger. And that looks pretty good. And now we're going to go back to our extrude settings, and we're going to right click the tool to reset it, and we're going to go in some, and we'll make sure to go in just a little at first to get that loop in there. Then we'll go in a lot, kind of like that, hit apply, and then just one more small one. Then we'll delete these interfaces. So now you can see there's some nice details in there, and it's looking a lot better. So now we'll just check our proportions with our bowl, and I think it looks pretty good. So we'll stop here and we'll move on to the next section.